Good morning, one and all. Okay, we're probably three or so seconds away from starting here. Let's just get straight down to it because I think it might be the time to start looking at some gold. Now, I will have to do one thing in the background. I've got one trade to put on in my other account later on. Who's that? Okay, you guys hear and see me okay? Let me just bring up my chart here. We need that one, this one here. So I have just put on a trade on gold, and I'm going to just edge into this. What I'd quite like is it down here, and I'd probably go again. Hi, Paul. Hi, Lewis. Okay, great stuff. Okay, so I want to get some more gold. I've put the stop way down here. Now, I'm not saying that you should necessarily follow me on the exact details of this trade because the price isn't very good. I've bought at the highs, but I'm getting a little bit kind of concerned that there might be a missed opportunity unless gold is bought up. So let's just put this line in as well. We'll put in some other levels here. Now I've got to. There's a level there that it looks like it's just dragging along. We do have Ainsley in with us later, and she will talk us more through the gold. Gold is certainly seasonally coming up to a weak period, but if we just think about the fundamentals of what's going on in the US, I think it's a decent trade. Now, I'm also going to have to put on something else in the background when the market eventually opens up. So we're opening up in around about 10 or so seconds. I've just got to check one thing here. I'm trading shares, so it won't be relevant to you guys on these accounts unless you've got a way of trading shares. So where is it? There it is. Yeah, that's probably going to go. It's got to go straight on. Okay, I've got to get something straight on here if I can. All right, 15 seconds, and then I can focus, and we can see what we're going to do with maybe the FTSE, maybe some gold as well. So here we go. 2 seconds. Here we go. Right now, I need some live prices here. What have we got? The market has opened up. My markets haven't opened up. Here we go. There's one. Come on, give it to me. Oh gosh. Get that one done. And can't do that, can I? That one. Probably around about that. There we go. Right. I think that's okay. Yeah. Yep, looks okay. Okay. Yep. Okay, so gold, yes. Now let's talk about this in a bit of detail. So really interesting what happened with Elon Musk. So we all know what happened to Bitcoin, and everybody's kind of really keen on Bitcoin because Elon Musk went and bought $1.5 billion. Now, does anybody know, anybody in the room, I don't know if Shukri's in, does anybody know what he paid for his $1.5 billion of Bitcoin? Because that's the key, isn't it? You know, everybody's kind of like jumping on board that the Bitcoin's going a whole bunch higher, but we've got absolutely no idea what Elon Musk paid for Bitcoin. You know, he may well have got into Bitcoin at 30,000. He might have got in at 10. We just don't know, or maybe we do. You know, if somebody can some shed some light on that, I think it would be interesting because it's a bit like when we sort of hear about directors and their buybacks. If a director bought their shares at £5 or $5, and when the share price is at 20, they announce it, then obviously the value of that share is not anywhere near the same as when the company owner bought it. So I think the Bitcoin story could do with a little bit more investigation. Now, when it comes down to gold and silver, the thing that doesn't seem to be mentioned that much is Elon Musk also bought a whole bunch of gold and silver as well. So there has to be some kind of protecting of assets going on there, I suspect. So I have also bought gold. Now let's have a quick look at the charts here. I don't love it here. We're definitely in a sell zone, if you like, but it's possible. It's just possible that we are through a level. Oh gosh, yes, thank you, Angel. Thank you. Yes. So if you guys want to get, just let me know if this is wrong. I think this is what this is about. Anybody on YouTube, you guys want to get involved in the show, then please come on board. Also, if anybody wants to unmute, then stick your hand up. It'd be great to have some company. Ainsley's in. Amazing. Okay.
Hello.
Now, hello, Ainsley. Now, I'm glad you're in. So, did you hear what we were just talking about with gold?
Yes.
Okay.
I was in it when
I think it's the investment today. Are we going to be early?
I'm happy to be early. I've been in for a little bit now. I've been clipped out a couple of times on the long up.
Yeah.
But it's not just Elon Musk, and you're right. That was his purchase of gold. And spot gold really pushed it up the other day, but that was really hidden behind the Bitcoin story. Very conveniently hidden behind the Bitcoin story, obviously, but it took off, which was what it needed. And it's been coupled very much with the US dollar story, the weakness in the US dollar, and that $1.9 trillion stimulus package that's coming down the road. Now, oil also is really liking that whole fiscal stimulus and all the rest of that's coming along with it. So I'm hoping this is I've been absolutely battered for the last couple of weeks on gold, as you could see. It's just not behaving nicely. And it's been hard. It's been a really hard couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks, almost a month now. And I'm looking at it going, let's just see where we go to. And it's sitting at 1845 at the moment. So it's up from where it was at 1800. And I've been so battered. I looked at it at 1800 at like 2 o'clock on Saturday morning. And I'm thinking I should be buying that. It's 1800. I haven't seen gold at 1800. And I was just spent at that stage. I mean, it's never a good time to start buying at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, I know what you mean about that. I was looking down there as well, and I just wondered whether we might get just a little bit further drop. And obviously I regret that now, because it did pop. And this is the thing. I think when it comes down to it, it's like, if you haven't got gold, if you haven't got gold in your portfolio, then expect some problems down the line. And it's one of those things about trying to pick the right price is the tough thing. Now, yes, I am trading gold, but actually I'm really interested in owning it as well. And with that, obviously, there's no leverage. You're only buying what you can afford. So if the price comes down a bit, you don't really panic too much. You just kind of go, fine. I believe in it as an asset class, along with many other asset classes. So it's not so much about getting the exact right price. Obviously, when you put stops in place, then you've got to be a bit more precise about where you get into it. So,
sizing and how and obviously, as you know, and I'm still off the video, aren't I? And lot sizing and the scaling in as well. So that will really impact. It does. It really impacts how I go about it. But gold ownership, I normally wear it around my neck and on a finger and stuff like that. So, which is really not necessarily an investment, because it's really hard to get it off me.
Yeah. Lewis is saying that he's worried that Elon Musk dumps some of the holding and it may cause a problem. Yeah, I know what you mean, Lewis. And I think that I feel that way about Bitcoin, but I don't really about gold, because gold, well, they're very similar, aren't they? The story with gold and Bitcoin has become almost intertwined, where they are now a store of value. And if you think about the different the different uses for each asset class. Bitcoin, there is a way that you can get kickbacks from Bitcoin. There's not really a way you can get a kickback from gold. So it's just a store of your wealth, really. Which
However,
mean
sorry, Ash, can I just interrupt? It is a
yeah.
store. It's a proven store of wealth.
Yes,
because
it
it's
is.
been around for so long. Okay, so
Yes.
where I'm going to differentiate from, okay, Bitcoin and gold are intertwined, not necessarily. And this is
Yeah.
where they're saying this is where Bitcoin and gold are different from what I've been reading, because Bitcoin, all we need is one of the regulators to say, you know what, sorry, this story's over.
Mm.
And it will come crashing down. Or Elon Musk says, no, I've changed my mind. I've made enough. How many of the billions that he's made? It was a pump and dump story, and I'm thanking you very much. And GameStop number 2 for the year is over.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, my kind of feeling on really Bitcoin is that if you buy gold, in my opinion, it has to be balanced with Bitcoin, because the two of them certainly currently are moving in tandem. Now, if Bitcoin was to dump and you own gold, the likelihood is that everybody rushes to gold for their, to save, to rescue their, sorry, to protect their financial value anyway. So that will probably pop up if Bitcoin goes down. So it'd be quite a nice seesaw. And I think in a way they both go up together, or one hedges the other. So I really like them as a kind of dual play. I think they are a bit of a Batman and Robin when it comes to investment. So I like it. I mean,
Batman.
gold is probably Batman. Robin's kind of getting delusions of grandeur right now, though, isn't he? So he's and the other thing about Bitcoin is that we haven't really had that really significant dump as yet, and I do think that we're probably due something. So I'm waiting for Bitcoin to come down before I buy it. If I do buy it, I mean, to be fair, I'm in the digital currency space anyway, and I'm not really that bothered if I buy that much more digital currencies. It will be fine if I do, but if I don't, not a problem. And it's I'm quite happy to try and spread the risk around a little bit, and buy things that I believe in, but I'm not really that worried about kind of going into one area. And the only reason for that is, you're an expert on gold, Shukri is an expert on digital currencies, but I'm not. So I'm just quite happy to go, look, I will buy what I know, rather than getting into a space that I don't understand enough. So if I understand it a bit, then I'll buy a bit. But I'm quite happy to kind of spread things around, and also buy what you're talking about with oil. Very, very interesting. Brent, I don't know if these are the actual prices, but certainly Brent up to $61 a barrel. Is that right? Yep. WTI at $58 a barrel. I think that the oil story is, as you say, it has to run in conjunction, or it seems to be running in conjunction with gold. It could run in conjunction with gold, and where the Elon Musk story is an interesting side story, the inflation story also has to be quite prevalent here. And if the inflation story really starts to rear its ugly head, then you would expect that gold and oil both pop even higher. I mean, oil, just looking at oil.
Yes, so if you pull up an oil chart, pull up if you want mine, Ash, the WTI, or the XTI, WTI, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Down a little bit further.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Now, guess what seasonally we have in Q1 for oil? I know, you guessed it. A rally.
A rally, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But that's there's a couple of factors there. One, they've been really good playing in the sandpit. The OPEC, they're keeping their restriction quotas down. They're not going berserk. Two, there is a huge Arctic blast that we've seen go across the US, which will also have a knock-on effect with natural gas. And we're seeing that happening at the moment. I don't know if it's chilly in your neck of the woods or not.
It's freezing.
Good. Excellent. Fantastic. nothing personal, Ash, but this is what we want. These are the kind of things that will tip oil and the demand for oil
Yeah.
along. And three, the supply. Supply is under control. The demand's increasing. The stimulus is coming, which is like they're eyeing this off down the track, going, it's looking for traction, looking for countries coming back online. As I said, the exponential number of COVID cases, deaths, etc., is actually, with the vaccinations, is actually easing. And
Yes.
it's just the smallest thing that these markets are just clinging to, any kind of to turn it around on top of all these other things that we just listed, is going to stimulate that kind of push up in the demand for oil.
Mm. Can you see my screen, by the way, Ainsley? I've got.
Yeah, I can.
Oh yeah, so it must be something your end, John. Okay, no problem. Yeah, so well, I'm on that. I'm with you on that. You know, I think as I say, I quite like the way that the oil story's going, and I have invested in BP. I think
Oh,
BP
good,
is.
good.
Yeah, you know, but and this is the thing, you know. I mean, I'm really interested in focusing on a portfolio rather than on a specific instrument. You know, I think that there's plenty out there to just to hedge off a little bit, but also to kind of think, well, you know, this seems to have some value in this particular area. So I don't need to keep kind of like, you know, chasing something like Bitcoin, which is continually going higher and higher and higher. I can buy a bit of this, buy a bit of that when I think it's of value, and just see if I can hold on to it. You know, this is the thing. I mean, I think that there's two different philosophies, isn't there, when you kind of approach this kind of thing. You're either trading it or you're investing in it, and I'm much more interested in doing a bit of both. And just filtering things through. So, as I say, when it comes down to gold, I am trading it, but I am, you know, I'm also just buying a little bit of it. Do you know? In fact, there's two other questions I've got for you. First one is, gold is about to hit a seasonal a patch of weakness. How do we take that? I mean, if we, you know, you're saying about oil and the seasonal kind of uptrend, and that, you know, this is all what playing into our hands. Gold doesn't really have that playing into our hands. Are we really more likely to be better to wait till March, or are we going to say actually it could go sideways from here till March, and then you've actually missed the low of the sideways movement, so you're better off getting in here and seeing if there's another bump in March?
All right, hang on, let me just, because there is a couple of seasonal patterns at play at the moment, and one of the ones that I've been watching and researching is the post-election
Yeah.
post-election year, which is
Yeah.
obviously this year. And for post-election for gold is for it to climb steadily through February after a dip after the first week, and then to climb steadily through February to the middle of March with a fairly sharp increase in the middle of March,
Right.
which is very different to normal seasonal patterns for gold, which for the other 3 of the 4-year cycle of the presidential cycle, which is for it to rally pretty much from the middle of December, which is the 16th of December. It didn't, it started earlier than that. Have a little bit of a hiccup first week or so of January. This year we had a major pullback back down to below December levels, and for it to go sideways and then this turn up. But whereas previously, so from middle of December through January, bit of a pullback towards the end of January, February, and then it will peak out at the end of February and then to come back sliding down during March. So this post-election year, which seems to be quite a few idiosyncrasies that are a little bit different to normal run-of-the-mill of the other 3 years. It's a steady growth from a pullback on the first week of February. And then we're looking at an increase steadily. It's not as radical as the other moves, but yeah, it's with, I'm looking in towards about the middle of March where it's expected to have a fairly sharp increase.
Yeah.
Now, if you tie that up with when they're going to get things through and bills passed and rescue packages put through, that timing is almost coming together in the States. So that will be one of the major things that will tick our gold along. But I mean, you can see here, even when Joe Biden, we weren't even sure. You're looking at an oil chart there, and you're looking at look at all those attempts for oil to drop lower in end of December into January, and so many attempts, and just wouldn't go back. And Jeff and I even had a conversation one Sunday night. He pulled up a chart for me, and I just said it's not going any lower. It just really likes that level of support through there. But a lot of the rhetoric around and the commentary around that time was Biden gets in and he wants everything green and he wants everything changed. The thing is, not everybody's going to go out next week and sell their petrol car, or we're not all of a sudden going to have, well, when planes start flying again, we're not just going to have that anymore. It's going to take time for that green change of getting things moving into the green. What do we call it now? The green, whatever you want to call it. Oil's still around. It's still needed.
One of the best performers on the LSE over recent months has been Aston Martin, and Aston Martin have effectively come out and said we are not going green. Everybody else is kind of like, you know, and I quite like the confidence that they've got. I don't really believe in it because I think that they're going to get. They might get caught short in a few years' time. But for right now, they're effectively saying, you know what, there are going to be petrol heads throughout the world that really want this combustion engine. Now, the issue that they're going to have, I think, is that the technology of clean energy cars are going to overtake combustion engines to the point that Aston Martin will look pretty slow. And you know, maybe not so sporty anymore. So that could be the battle that Lawrence Stroll, the CEO, has. But I quite like the fact they're going, you guys can compete over there. You know, Tesla's sort of like done this thing. So now, you know, all of a sudden everybody's kind of like getting on this green and renewable energy car thing. Well, we're not going to compete. We're just going to create our own little space over here and pretty much have 100% of the market value and market cap over here. And they've done really well out of it. You know, as I say, they've more than doubled in price. You know, which some of them have, but Aston Martin continue to ease forward. So I think that just goes to show what you're saying is absolutely accurate. You know, we're just not there yet. We're not at the point where we're getting phased out so much. There's a really interesting company over here called ITM Power as well, which is a hydrogen company, which I've really liked for a long time, and they've also doubled in value, and they're coming off a little bit, but they had a numbers release the other day, and their numbers are atrocious. You know, they're investing heavily in this space, and you know, and their stock price has done really well, but the numbers that they are, their revenue stream is just not there. You know, people are not ready to go hydrogen. You got like the likes of Airbus that are developing this stuff, but it's probably not for another maybe minimum of 7 years, I would have thought, before they really get a proper rollout where, you know, it becomes at least, you know, half of airlines' fleet is actually in hydrogen or something like that. So so yeah, we're a little ways off, aren't we?
We are. It's dealing with reality, and the whole thing is, I mean, let's face it. Biden might actually have these ideas, and this is the ticket that he ran on, and that's all appealing. But to be brutally blunt, it's 78. I'm not sure how many of these bills he will get passed.
Well, do you know where I think he might actually do pretty well is that he's not the only world leader talking about this. In actual fact, forgetting world leaders, the IMF are talking about it. You know, and the WTO are talking about it. You know, everybody seems to be
everything.
Yeah, because everybody recognizes that we need it. And again, you know, talking about gold, having gold in your portfolio, which I think is really important. I think it's really important to also have some kind of green energy stock or green energy exposure in your portfolio. You know, just like I wish I'd got some cannabis to get through the day. No, I wish I got some cannabis. When say, well, in October, I'm really annoyed with myself for missing it, but I did, and there's a few industries that I think if you haven't got some exposure to them, then you could be missing out on some fantastic moves. Now, I always think that there's a story at the start of every year that you can jump on board, and a few years ago it was cryptocurrencies, and that looks like it's continuing to go and continuing to gather pace. But there are others, there are other stories that I think can be traded and should really be looked into. John's saying it will be like the vaccines. We will only move away from fossil fuels when we're forced. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the thing. And I think we may be there. We may be at the point that the fossil fuels, we've almost been forced by COVID to reassess what we need and how we behave, as a human race. And the only thing I think that might hold back the green revolution to come a bit sooner is if the vaccines are really effective too fast. So the world gets back to almost normalcy, back to where it was too fast. If it can hold out for a bit longer, and we can continue to kind of like have these restrictions, it means that companies have got time to make the transition, because they may as well. There's no point in the likes of BP going, let's continue to try and sell oil when there's no or very few buyers out there, relatively speaking. The airlines are not purchasing, obviously, so they may as well go and start looking further into the green investment. And they've just bought so they've done quite a lot of business recently, BP, which is why I'm really interested in them as a company. They just bought a wind farm. I'm going to call it a wind farm. I can't think of the technical word for it, but they just bought a wind farm off the coast of Ireland. And this is what I was saying about the world leaders. The UK and Boris Johnson's another one who's really interested in this green revolution. And I think that Boris Johnson will probably push it harder than most, because the UK doesn't sell anything. It's got no, the manufacturing in the UK is practically zero. So that we need something which is going to be very UK centric, that we can sell to the rest of the world. And I think wind power might be it. So I think there might be more than just Biden that pushes this through.
Yeah, friends of mine, they actually own several wind farms.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to buy a copy of Forbes in the next 3 years and see Jeff on the front of it with his bamboo. This green movement is happening.
You talked about Aston Martin before, but what they've done is they've got Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes have got Lewis Hamilton into one of the EQs. Now they're a nice looking thing, the EQ. Yep. And that's electric. And he said any of those misconceptions that you've got about no power and they're basically a shopping trolley or whatever. And he said absolutely not. He acts, and this is where you're going to see that change with the petrol heads, where they need to have that thump, doof doof doof, or the doof doof cars as we call them over here. But yeah, those electric cars are going to have the power. I mean, you've got Lewis Hamilton whipping around. Well, you don't whip around in London, do you?
No, well, probably do at the minute, but generally speaking, no, you don't.
Yeah, but Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes have given him as an ambassador, obviously as a Formula One driver, but yeah, he's driving an EQ, and he said it is fantastic. So, and it's interesting because I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they're very much, and I'm looking at upgrading my little shopping trolley, which has been running around, but they're very much, Mum, you should be looking at an electric car. I'm like, but why? I mean, Australia's big, and we travel a long way, and we just don't have a lot of the infrastructure. This is where we're saying petrol cars are still going to be the one to go with, because we don't have the infrastructure to go and plug her in overnight.
No, well, this exactly that, and it's going to take a while for that.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes down to markets and currencies, let's just have a quick look at the FTSE and see what's going on. It looks pretty quiet so far. Tried to get into a FTSE short yesterday, and we got stopped out above this pivot. It could still come down. There is a wider trend line along here, which is just struggling. Do you know what? There we go. That's where it is actually. Let me just bring this up along here. It's quite frustrating looking at these charts, because these end up being different to the futures, which is what I really look at. There we go. We're probably about there. So we might even be. I'm just going to have a look at the futures and just make sure that line's in the right place. Where is it? Yeah, that is about right actually. So it looks like we are through on the FTSE. I wouldn't be that surprised to see the FTSE just push a little bit higher and use this level here. And I wonder whether we might be at this juncture here.
Can I ask you, Ash, what's the correlation like between the FTSE and the S&P and the Dow?
Oh, well, it's a really good question. If the Dow gets, if the S&P gets a bloody nose, then the FTSE's head's fallen off. It's one of those things that the S&P has managed to kind of rally hard over the last few years, but the FTSE hasn't. But if the S&P comes down, the FTSE will come down as well. So there is an absolute correlation. If you are trading the FTSE, you're kind of trading the S&P. The thing that's been the disparity that's come in recently has been about the pound and the way that the pound has been, very much in focus because of Brexit and everything else. So where there is normally a very, very direct correlation, that they will normally move in fairly close tandem. The FTSE hasn't been able to get the same kind of expanse as the S&P because of what's been going on with Brexit, and it might actually hamper it further now. I don't know, but when the S&P rallies, the FTSE will rally. It's just not rallying as much. So we find ourselves halfway home from the highs. When we sort of like look back on what's happened to the FTSE, it's only at this level here, and because of that, I think most people would maybe confuse this to say, well, it doesn't move with the S&P, but it does. It's just the velocity is just not as vicious. We're just not getting. But I can't sort of like. It's a shame you can't overlay charts on top of each other. But if you look at the S&P and look at this from 2016, that there was the rally and then the big drop and then the rally. It's kind of the same when you bring up the S&P 2016. The drop's not anywhere near as bad. And then there's another drop for COVID, and the rally is a lot harder. So they do move together, but there's just a. Yeah, and there's it's one of those though, sort of. It's a bit like the DAX as well. This is similar. If you were to run over the DAX chart with the S&P, you would see similar points where it was a peak and similar points where it was a fall, but it's just not quite as extended. So Lisa, sorry, if the S&P keeps going up at levels it's going, it will hit 5 to 6K by the end of the year. It's nearly 4,000, and we are in the middle of Feb. Do you see a big pullback soon? I do, Lisa. I think there will be a pullback soon. Whether it, Lloyd and I were talking about this yesterday, and Lloyd doesn't believe there will be. So it is an opinion, and the reason I bring up Lloyd is that I think he's got really smart mind with this stuff. So my opinion is that we do, but there are arguments on both sides of it. One of the reasons that I think we may see a bit of a pullback is that you don't really tend to see, and this is the thing, same with Bitcoin, you don't tend to see things just going and going and going, and when everybody gets confident is the time that I get most fearful. And one of the reasons that I'd be quite keen on a short in Bitcoin is that now Elon Musk is in and everybody's like, okay, let's pile in then it's kind of time to leave the party. And I wonder if it's going to be something like that with the S&P. So yes, I think there will be a pullback. I'm a bit nervous about the S&P at the levels it's at. I don't think it's good value here. It's the US stock market will probably continue to ease higher because there's stimulus and there's central bank intervention and all sorts of stuff going on. And when it comes down to what does cheap money equal, it equals higher stock prices. So I guess what you're looking at is, does a treasury, and this is well worth looking into, have a look at the 10-year note and maybe the 30-year note. When those guys start paying north of 2.5% in interest, then because they are seen as safer investments, I think you'll see something get shaved off the S&P, but that'll probably be much of a longer term thing. What could cause it to come down? I don't know, but valuations are getting probably a bit stretched.
Yes.
I would have thought because it's kind of it's surviving on fumes in some respects. At what point, and this is the big question, at what point do those earnings that the companies that the companies are getting start to diminish because of things like inflation or debt repayment? Because what a lot of these companies are doing, and it's standard practice. You've got the likes of Apple. Apple's got a whole bunch of cash, loads and loads of cash, and if you look at the assets, in fact, if you look at the debt that Apple's got, it's got quite a lot of debt. And you sort of go, well, why have they got loads of debt if they've got all this cash? And it's because money's cheap. Money's cheap to borrow. So why would they bother using their cash? Why would they take away their reserves when it's cheaper to go and borrow money and get a kickback on a business from dividends, and effectively make themselves 3 or 4% in the spread, and not to have to use any of their cash. So all these companies will do is continue to use the collateral they've got to go and borrow more and borrow more and borrow more. But at some point that's going to change. At some point that will come back. But we may well see that. We may well see a bit of a road sign for that, and that hasn't come as yet. We could look at the seasonals and everything else, but unless we see something which suggests that that it's time, the seasonals don't really pay. I can't really pay much attention to it, which is really why one of my questions for you, Ainsley, is that the seasonal pattern for gold was to rally through the period that we've seen some weakness. So does that suggest that maybe at this stage, maybe the seasonals aren't quite as prevalent, and we shouldn't be too concerned that gold, is seasonally going to be coming to a weak period? We should just be buying it now because things are out of kilt on this particular commodity.
That's a really good point. And the fact is, I think gold long term is always a really good point now to buy, because things are out of kilt.
Yeah.
And that's when you buy things when it's not at the top of the market. You buy it when things aren't quite so good.
Yeah.
So that is a really good point. But just going back to, and I'm looking at Lisa's question here as well. Yes, there's a lot of liquidity. And speaking with Gordon before Paul Gordon came before I roped him into coming and working with us, Gordon Scott, Paul Gordon. Yeah. Gordon and I go back a long, many years.
And he was a great addition, I thought.
He's so clever. He knows all about this. And one of the things he said about with the S&P, and one of the reasons that the S&P rally has gone and gone and gone, even in these pandemic times where manufacturing has pulled back and demand for goods have pulled back, people have been going with their little $600 check and going and buying stocks. They've been going straight to the market. So this is where you've got the GameStop, and you've got all these millennials sitting at home going, oh, what can I do with this money? And I'm living at home with mum and dad, and he's saying all these checks provided by the government are going into the stock market, and therefore S&P are going up. If you start to actually dissect the S&P, there's only a couple of companies that are actually pushing those figures up. A lot of the companies on the S&P are not doing quite so flash, as you've pointed out.
Yeah.
You know, some of the results have been atrocious, but the big ones that are dragging them all up, combined with these, and you watch what's going to happen in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, when they all get their $1,400 check. Good Lord, you know, what will happen to the crypto market? What will happen to, you know, put a little bit of, and spreading the portfolio, the gold, and obviously all while the US dollar is going down because they've printed all this extra money. The stock market will probably rally. We'll probably see all of these things because, as Lisa pointed out, there's a lot of liquidity, and it'll be more liquidity because that's being pumped straight back into the economy from the government. So let's see what happens with that. Do the seasonals match up? Yeah, look, you know, I'm saying mid-March, there is meant to be a strong rally up in further step up, leg up on gold. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, for me, gold is always meant to be moving in the opposite direction of the US dollar. You know, the S&P goes up, and technically gold used to be going down. That correlation broke down ages ago.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got these things coming down the road now. Gordon's right across all the S&P and what's feeding it and how it's all moving in, and he is, I mean, the poor guy. I mean, let's just put it this way: he used to work at IBM, and his manager there was Ainsley. He had me as a student 11, 12 years ago, and his feistiest and most stubborn, and by the way, they're his words, his granddaughter, her name is Ainsley as well. So this guy is a genius just because he can speak Ainsley speak. All right. So listen to what he says. He's got it, you know, he understands. But he's right across what puts it, and he even put it out that if the S&P rallies every month more than 9% by April, which is correlated to when people can pull their money out for tax purposes in the States, you will expect a pullback in April. Gordon can give you the lowdown of how this market moves, and if you're saying it's highly correlated with the FTSE, then yeah, he's got some good answers there.
So, what was the other thing I was going to ask you about? Silver.
Silver, yeah, it went up and went down. Thank you, Reddit boys. But the silver market, and then I was reading, there was too much. Silver market's a very big, very different market, a lot bigger to what they tried with GameStop. GameStop was easy. By the way, GameStop today has had $20 billion wiped off their market cap.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's stupid, isn't it? That whole thing is really, really silly. I don't subscribe to the you know, that kind of stock buying at all. Yeah, I really don't. I think it's really silly.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, you know, if they've held on to it and they've held on to it for too long, then they've missed the point of the game. The game was, you know, pump it up and get out. But people think it's going to keep going up forever when it gets like that. And it's a bit of FOMO, and it's a bit of typical market or traders fear of missing out, traders greed. You know, two biggest killers in any of your trading portfolio management. And look, they've all missed the boat if they haven't already got out.
Yeah.
I'd like to bank 33.
But you know what? Why? See, the thing with silver, which I find really interesting as well, is the use of it. Where's Reggie? Is the use of silver. Sorry, Angel. Yes, that's fine for Reggie. There are people laughing all the way to the bank and there are people crying.
Yeah.
Hello, absolutely.
1921.
Absolutely.
Same kind of thing. There was a run on the, you know, and people won't learn because we're basically human. We are human, and basically we're greedy people.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah, just on silver. So let's have a look at a silver chart as well. I like them both. I like them both. Now there's the spread with, I mean, tricky, isn't it? When we silver.
See, that's not a silver chart, is it? Look at that nonsense.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
not a silver chart. Silver's really gentle, and yes, before all this nonsense happened and it became the focus of the Redditors' attention, it was moving the way it would normally move. And percentage-wise, it probably moved a little bit more, and percentage gains in percentage terms, it probably would have been a better investment than gold would have been. However, that's all blown out of all proportion because it's a mess. I mean, look at the last couple of months. You just can't trade that.
But the thing is, though, why would Elon Musk not have bought a bunch of silver? Because he must have a use for silver. If he's bought a load of gold, he must have. So silver is an investment and a use in his, because he's going to have to, obviously these companies that use something like silver, they are going to have to pay.
And platinum and rhodium and all of those markets, Ash, they've already been pre-run. It's already been built in those prices.
But they have a use for silver, right? I mean, they use this stuff in their technology. So why would they not have gone? Why wouldn't he not have gone, right? I will get some gold because I need it, but I'm going to get a whole bunch of silver as well because I'm going to actually need it. I'm going to actually need this stuff, and I don't want to pay. If I believe that gold is going higher, the correlation between gold and silver means that silver is likely to go higher as well. So if I believe gold's going higher, shouldn't I go out and buy at least a third of that money that I'd allocated for precious metals in silver, just in case the futures price, so get the futures price now, just in case price goes up in the next 3 to 5 years to potentially triple. If we're seeing Bitcoin go up in the way it's gone up, and maybe some of it is down to the same reason that people buy the likes of gold and silver, then surely the same thing could happen with silver, where it does go up to 75. What was it at? What is its all-time high? I mean, its all-time high is up. It's pretty much double where it is now. Is all-time high.
I think the difference is, one, he's letting people trade and purchase in Bitcoin and gold, whereas silver is a cost of production. And I think there's the difference in your answer. He doesn't want his fixed overheads to be increased. You're not going to pump up the price of silver. Gold, he's saying, I will use gold as a medium and Bitcoin as a medium or a fiat currency, an alternate fiat currency. That's what he's saying with Bitcoin and gold. That's what he's saying there. That's why he made that announcement. But with silver is needed for his production.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They're completely different commodities serving different purposes. Now, he's not going to pump up the price of silver. Why would he do that?
Well, that's true.
Why would you do that?
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So
the essence is what is the purpose behind what he's doing?
Yeah.
Now, he's probably run those prices. But like I said, platinum, nickel, rhodium, they're all really good for runs at the moment. Copper's on its way up, and they're all things needed in, I don't know, an electric car battery.
Yeah.
So yeah, different purposes. You don't push up your fixed overheads. He's well ahead of that game.
So looking at the market generally, how do you feel? I mean, you're saying about the S&P now. Interestingly, just back to Lisa, your point as well, Lisa. The Aussie seems to be very closely correlated. Reggie saying for Tesla.
Yeah, well, it is. It's a commodity. It's a commodity currency. So anything, all those moves are going to be really impacted. The Aussie dollar. We're a resource country. So hello, look at that move.
Well, this is So this is the Aussie yen, and I think that one thing you can do, Lisa, and there's a few things that will help you try and ascertain really whether we might be hitting a bit of a top in the markets. Continue to look at the Aussie, because the Aussie has really enjoyed a similar move against many of its peers. Definitely against the Aussie yen. We saw Gordon use the Aussie yen as a proxy for the markets during the trading retreat. Definitely the Aussie yen. So keep looking at the Aussie, see what's happening and if you want to read any news outside the US, then it's well worth looking at what's going on in Australia, for two main reasons. One because they are so commodity based, but also because of their close relationship with China, which who knows. Yeah, yeah. Well, China may end up being, oh god, I should take this there's a share of pure cannabis ETF, and that's the one that I'm absolutely kicking myself I missed out on in October. Since October, let me just tell you what the price is in October. Nice little low in April, obviously, but where we've seen many things kind of rally during the October period, we have seen cannabis ETF now up 149%. Actually, not as impressive as I thought, but that's still pretty good.
Not to be sneezed at, Ash.
No, it is amazing, isn't it? It's just that the reason I say that it's not as high as I thought is that, as I say, Aston Martin are up, a similar amount. The only thing is that
Bond movie coming out. That's why.
Yeah, which again, I think that's quite interesting. People have been talking about there being a female Bond, and I know you'd be really up for that. But a friend of mine and I were talking the other day, and we just think that we both think, and you might quite appreciate this opinion. We both think leave Bond alone. Bond is what he is, but he's a 00. Why can't they get a female 00 so she's got her own film, like a 009?
Like a Wonder Woman or a Supergirl.
Well, you got that as well, but I like the thought. I like the thought that you've got this secret agent, woman. But I don't think it has to be 007. I think it should be 009 or 008 because, you could have a little offshoot going on.
Like Get Smart.
Get Smart, yeah, 001.
Yeah,
you don't need to be messing with that. Anyway, I digress. The other thing about that is that yes, Aston Martin does actually, and you might have said it on lightly, but it is true that Aston Martin does get kickback from the fact that James Bond drives the Aston Martin. Now again, in 5 years' time, when Aston Martin haven't made the jump to electric, will the PC crowd, which obviously the studio has to kind of make sure that they appeal to everybody, will they appreciate a film where they've got somebody driving around with a car which is not ecologically friendly, and will they prefer him to be driving a I don't know, a BMW E series or something, rather than
this is where 009
yeah
009 will be driving the EQ.
Yes. There isn't a 009, just to clarify, but there should be. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the way it should be, right? They get 009. James Bond can be a bit of a dinosaur in some respect.
Right.
Yeah, just leave it where it is.
She prefers a Negroni rather than a martini. So there you go. It's all so many. Don't look at me like that.
What would they drink? No, well, I'm just. What was it? She wouldn't drink a martini. What would she drink? Do you think?
A Negroni.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Oh my god! Okay. A Negroni is a gin. It's still a gin-based drink, but it's spicy and it's nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So not a Bloody Mary or something. I like Bloody Marys.
No,
I find it quite calming on the aeroplane. Every time I go on the aeroplane, it's Bailey's or a Bloody Mary for me.
I just keep bringing it.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the Aussie, but let's have a quick look through some of these currencies as well. Now, obviously, we can take them off the monthly and see what's happening a little bit. So Aussie CAD, always a bit of a tricky relationship because the CAD's also a bit of a commodity affair. Now, this stuff starts to look interesting. If you see the Aussie coming down against the Swissy, then it looks like a buying opportunity could be in play. Now, and if we don't see the stock market come down, the other thing that it suggests is that the Aussie is still a long, and it's really where to get into the long. And you can see that there might be a pivot test, could be a little bit further down. You could certainly draw up a fib between the low and the high, which is a weird color. Let's do it in white.
Yeah, black on black really
It
drags
doesn't
a
work
little
really, does it?
bit. Yeah,
Look
hello.
at that, 38% retracement on the weekly pivot. So Aussie Swiss looks interesting, and there might even be a little trend line down here as well. I don't know, maybe not. Aussie Swiss looks interesting, as it pulls back. So with these kind of things, in some respects, not everybody wants to play it this way, but in some respects, you're better off uh, waiting for a retracement to go long rather than trading it short. In most occasions, you can trade it short to go long. I've got a bit of a love for that kind of trade, but in some respects, you can get out in front with this stuff. If you think that the S&P, if you don't hear anything with the S&P going lower, suggesting that the S&P. Oh, let's have a look at that on the pound dollar. If you have a look at the S&P as a proxy for the world economy, if you like, then you can start looking at the Aussie and saying, well, that's a proxy for the S&P. So if the Aussie continues to retrace against something like the Swissy, which would be considered risk off, then that would be a potential buying opportunity with stuff like this. And you can get out in front and just say, well, I'm interested around about 0.6859 maybe. Now the pound, Gary's saying. What does that T1 reach? Oh, take profit. Was this is this the breakout trade, Gary? I don't know the breakout trade well enough to have traded it, but it looks pretty good. Nice one.
Don't you take notes on it every night?
No, do you know what? I don't get in with Jeff until 8:15 because I try and do some shares in the background, and then I do write down the numbers. But I can never remember how he generates those numbers, whether it's 3 bars back and 15 pips or 12 bars back and 1 pip. I just I get a bit lost in it all. So but it looks pretty good. Breakout.
Good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's on the half hour. I think he trades it, so it would have been. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly the fact that it's not gone below an area down here and it's gone much higher would suggest
that short order's been cancelled and it's gone on its merry way. And how are you going with nothing to talk about other now that Brexit's gone?
Oh, I mean, I quite like it. I've got to say, but it's not all done. This is the thing, is the Brexit fallout is really happening now, which I think which I think is interesting. So I wonder whether really now we see what really happens to the pound. I mean, I've got no major confidence in the pound and no major confidence in the UK economy, really. But the pound is it almost feels like a kind of a counter reaction to what we did have with Brexit. We've rallied pretty hard against most of these, bringing it up against the euro. Euro continues to sink a little bit against the pound. The pound Aussie actually interestingly weak, but this would be my favoured play. If I wanted to short the pound, it would definitely be against the Aussie. I really like the Aussie as a currency. I think it's fantastic, but looks like a little trend line. What's that? Sorry?
I said it's worked for me.
Yeah, it's working for you, isn't it? And I do think it's really good. I think the Australian economy is in the right phase right now. It's in the right point, and I think that a lot of this almost can be confused to how well politicians are running a country. But really, I think that the thing with Australia is that it really does produce the correct things for right now. And the UK just doesn't. And the other thing about the UK is that it's going to struggle because unless they can figure out exactly how to beat Europe on some things, then there are going to be companies that continue to leave the shores and because they need exposure to what's going on. There are enough companies that are saying that there are government officials telling people to set up companies in the likes of Holland just so they can have imports and exports with no tariffs and with no border checks and stuff. So where people are ringing up and going, what do I do to get through all this red tape and paperwork? They're saying just set yourself up a limited company abroad and you can do it that way. So if government officials are telling people to do that, then they're just in a very bad place. And as I say, the wind revolution couldn't happen fast enough because the UK desperately needs something to export. Because while it's losing potential market share as the financial hub of the world, it's going to struggle if that industry gets diminished by too much. And I think it did. Initially it got quite diminished, but I don't know. I don't know how far that's going to continue. So we'll
Can
have
I
to
ask
see
you
about it.
something?
Yeah.
The general consensus in the UK, if they had their time over, would the population still be in favour of Brexit?
That's a really good question, Ainsley. And I've got to say, the more I looked into leaving the EU, the more I could see how it made sense. I don't think it makes sense economically. I think it's a terrible decision. But I get it. And if I had to vote again, I would still vote to remain. But I don't have the same knotted feeling in my gut that I did initially. And the reason for that is that I think that when I look into Europe, it's not a club I'd want to be part. If it was all set up today and they said that these are the rules, I don't think the UK should join. And that's more what it is. I wouldn't vote to leave, but I certainly wouldn't vote to join. And that would be almost a better way of twisting it. If tomorrow they had a referendum to rejoin the EU, would you rejoin? And my answer would be no. I think the European Union is it's convoluted, but that's not my biggest problem with it. I think it's too. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I think in fact, I think it's a good idea that's been implemented badly. And for that reason, I wouldn't. I think if they laid out all the facts, this is what you're going to get, and this is what you're going to have to give to join this company, this party. Do you want to join? I'd be like, nah, that doesn't look like a good idea to me.
Okay.
Economically, it's still good, but I think the EU ultimately could implode. That deal that you've done over in Asia with China and Singapore and Japan, is it? I can't remember. You had a conglomerate of countries, didn't you, that have literally just come together and done some sort of trade deal.
Oh, the Pacific Rim deal.
The Pacific Rig deal, is it called?
Pacific
Rim deal. That's the deal the EU should be having. That's a great structure. Brilliant. It's about trade, isn't it?
It's all about trade.
Nothing to do with sovereignty. Nothing to do with governments and going through justice and all this sort of thing. It's just that's the way the EU should be set up. Yeah, and I do think that they probably, whoever came up with the idea to get those countries together, probably looked at the EU and said, I reckon we could do this better. Yeah, the EU isn't just about trade. No, you're right, John. You're right. And that's the thing. When the EU was set up, it was to do really with keeping the peace in Europe. And I get that.
Keeping the peace and offering cheap labour and equality of labour across the European Union as well.
Yeah.
Labour contingency.
But if you look, if you look at countries like Portugal and Greece, they have suffered hugely by being in the European Union.
And not far behind.
Yeah, and you don't really kind of hear so much about those stories. You hear more about how well Germany's doing in France or whatever, but they're not the only countries in the EU. It is quite a dark. It's quite a dark union. It's not as kind of sugary as I think that many people perceive it to be. So that's another reason I wouldn't choose to join. If it was coming back, I wouldn't choose to leave, but now it's there. If they said tomorrow, are you joining? I'll be like, nah, let's see if we can do this on our own.
Actually, it was very funny headlines a couple of months ago about the UK wanted to have, with Australia, wanted to go back to the way it was before the EU. And, so all the Brits could just come over to Australia without a visa. We just stay as long as they like. they could do whatever. And Australia said, yeah, no, not happening anymore. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Yes, 1788 was pretty important as far as being an outpost for the most belligerent and unwanted people from the UK. But
yeah,
by the same time, things have moved on. We're a pretty multicultural society now, but Yeah, we'll see what happens with, and obviously being a Commonwealth country, those links are still pretty strong, but it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out with the UK and Australia trade deal as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys need a lot of help. From what I've read, you guys need a lot of help over there.
Oh yeah, we could do with a bit, Ainsley. Yeah, don't mind. Anyway, we got to wrap it up. I've got to be quiet on the clock because I'm doing homeschooling now from here on in.
You! I wouldn't have my left hand with a blunt fork doing that. Yay! Back at school.
It's the most frustrating, most frustrating part of my day, but I have to try and do it. So I'm going to go and sit there for an hour in silence while I wait for my daughter to play me a C major scale.
Fun, honey. That sounds good. Well, yeah. I'm still looking. As I said, I'm still looking for gold to keep going up. Aussie dollar is looking pretty strong for me, and oil. I'm watching the oil story as well this week.
Okay, but no trades just now, right?
Look, where gold is sitting at the moment, we've got what we're coming into actually on gold, and you don't have it because you have naked charts, but we're just about to have a golden cross on 4 hourly on gold. Is okay. 20 moving above the 50, which is quite significant in that in a lot of algos, that's a definite, hey, that's a long position to be looking at. And that's just on basic, boring technical charts. But with everything else that's going on, yeah, look at that. We've popped up above that jolly.
You say 2050, right?
Yeah, just the base, bog boring, bog standard, 20 and 50 exponentials, and they're just about to cross over. And it's just coming out of that quagmire of it. We've broken through and we're coming back.
Okay, and you say on the 4 hour, so
yeah, pop that on the 4 hour. Yeah, do that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you have a breakthrough. We have a breakthrough and a retest. I'm trying to grab the mouse and show you, but it's not working on my computer. So you got a breakthrough on the 50. It's come back, retested, it's gone higher, retested that level, it's come back and retested, but it's no break of that 50. That's why I'm feeling fairly, and look at it, it's just following those pivots up neatly on a technical basis, nothing else around what I'm talking about, but just on a technical basis, it's gone through, broken, come back, held those levels the whole way up.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm going to buy some more down here, by the way. So anybody interested in buying gold, I think at 1835 is another buy for me. So I'm going to be scaling into this position, and I'll continue to buy.
Watch your back end.
Yeah, I will do that.
Yeah, especially if it decides to go the other way. Hello.
Yeah, well, if it goes the other way, it's one of those. I'm happy to let it go, and I'll buy some more when it comes down a bit further. So I don't mind really. I'm pretty comfortable with gold. This thing's not going to zero, so I'll hold it for as long as I have to.
No, and like I said, it's been around way too long. It mightn't move as quickly as Bitcoin. It mightn't show you the fabulous returns that silver percentage-wise will give you, or Dogecoin, or what is Dogecoin? Dogecoin, I think Shukri called it Dogecoin. Bitcoin, any of those, it's not going to have that, but it's a stable investment. And this is pretty much what you're looking for, isn't it? Something a little bit more stable, that's reliable, and good old gold. Like I said, I tend to wear my investments around my neck or on my fingers. And good luck getting it off me. But it's there. It's there. And it's not going to zero.
Yeah, which is important. Okay, thanks so much, Ainsley, for coming in. Are you in again next Wednesday?
Yes. Jeff has asked me to come in.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'll see you then. Have a great week and a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks again. Off. Thanks, guys. I'll be back with Jeff tomorrow, and we'll update that pound trade. Bit.
Isn't it? Good one.
Yes, he would have done well with that one. Shame he wasn't in on the day that it really started to take off. Them's the breaks. All right. Have a good one, guys.
See you later. Bye.